all over the place.
Some woman at the front wants the thing for light free. Just go on to my YouTube channel, underline. No, it's their Wi-Fi. No, it's connected to this.
Sorry, mate.
Easy.
Sorry.
That's one of the things that we want. It's not happening. It's just we become I'm not sure.
I know. We're not doing 20-minute neighbourhoods in Bury.
It's not all just 2 cents. Over that box.
Very compared to Bedford is double the size, but every time it's a army. Nobody wants to put themselves out well, I just think if we're just going to say no, we're not made we're not very quite no money is offered so they can fight us for our freedoms.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me now? Right. Well, thank you all very much for coming tonight. It's good to see so many Thetford residents interested in this important issue. My name is Louis Basuta, and I'm going to be chairing this meeting. I have a number of people who've asked to speak, and they are Carla Barretto, Rodney Thompson, Sally Ludford, Linda Rolfe, Kirsty Robb, Jeffrey Reeve, Luke Collins. Also, there we go. How's that? Is that better? That's better. Shortly, I'm going to ask Lana Hempsel to my immediate right to open with a description of the 20-minute neighbourhoods issue, which I know you're all very interested in. I've also to the right of Lana, we have your Thetford County councillors, Terry Jermy.
The noise returned.
How's this? Can you hear that? Okay. Your Thetford County councillors are here, who are Terry Jermy from Thetford West and Jane James from Thetford East. Jane is also the Mayor of Thetford, and she is our host this evening. Thank you very much, Jane, for inviting us. And to Jane's right, we have Tom McCabe, who is the head of paid service for Norfolk County Council. So he's kind of like the chief executive of the civil servants. He's shaking his head. Well, he's certainly responsible for the Norfolk County Council people, and we're very grateful to him for him to attend. To my left, I have Bob Sayes, I have Thetford resident Jeff Mealing, Brian Rees, and Thetford resident Mike Ball. We're hoping to have... You will be hearing from Mike Ball tonight, and in fact you'll be hearing from anyone who wants to speak on this issue. We want your voices heard. This is an opportunity for the residents of Thetford to engage with their county councillors. I do ask, please, that we keep this meeting civil, that there are no outbursts, there's no finger jabbing or shouting or heckling. If you do want to speak, please go to the lectern over there and pick up the mic. I hope that mic is going to be working, and catch my eye, and I will call on you to speak. Also, if any of the people to my left or to my right want to speak, they'll raise their hands and I will call on them to speak. But to start things off, I'd like to call on Lana Hensel. Over to Jane first. Okay, so first of all to our Mayor of Thetford, Jane James.
Thank you. Hopefully you can all hear me. Good, excellent, thank you. So welcome. As committed to at that last town council meeting where we had to reconvene because we were overwhelmed by numbers in the council chamber, this meeting has been organised for you, the residents of Thetford, and to meet the representatives of Norfolk County Council and engage in dialogue, understanding, and come together behind the understanding of the theory behind this particular idea, and it is very much an idea at the moment, and pose your questions so that we can understand both views. I look forward to constructive dialogue with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Now to Lana Hensel, who is County Councillor for April in Norfolk.
This is going to be interesting, right? Can everybody hear me? Without too much of that. Better. Much better. See? I told you this would be a good spot. Right, so my name's Lana Hensel. I am the County Councillor, Division Member for April, and my role at the County Council is specifically Member Champion for Sustainable Transport. What I want to set out first of all is I've watched the videos, I've seen the reaction that's happened online, I have followed a lot of the comments. And what I'd really like us to ascertain first of all is that we are all here. I am. We're all here because we've chosen to be here, right? I mean, I have a family and a home, I have other things that I do on a Thursday evening, and so do all of you. And yet we've all chosen to be here because what we're discussing this evening is important to you, to your county councillor, and to Mike. Sorry guys, I can't remember your names, but it's important to you all. And that's why we're all here. So regardless of what's been said so far, can I just have a quick show of hands? Because this matters to me right now. Who is here against restrictions on civil liberties and movement? That would be me. Yeah, thank you. Who here, second show of hands, who here would like to see more facilities, better local cohesion, and more community engagement for Thetford? So I think we're starting from a good place, because everyone here in this room believes in the same things. It's what underpins the reason we are all here. What you don't know about me, because it's not visible, is, and you probably would have picked up, is that I'm registered blind. I was also brought up in former Yugoslavia, which is, you may say, a communist regime or a socialist regime, either or. It does not promote, and never did, the same civil liberties as it did here. When I was diagnosed with my sight condition, I was told that A, I should forget about going to university because people like me don't get educated. B, I should never get married because people who have congenital conditions that they're going to pass on to their children should never have children. And C, if I was going to support myself, they were going to teach me how to weave baskets, and that's it. I have spent all of my life since then standing up for rights and emancipation and civil liberties, not just of disabled people, but everybody. And that's why the concept of the 20-minute neighbourhood is so important to me. When my husband and I moved to Norfolk, we were looking for a community where I could live an independent life, where I wouldn't have to rely on him or anybody else to get around and to look after our 3 children. And we found this really special place called Acle in Norfolk. In Acle, for those of you who have been, I can walk to the shop, I can walk to the pharmacy, I have a doctor, I have a preschool, I have a high school, I have a primary school, I have a recreation centre, library, everything within a 10-minute walk from my home. And this place is somewhere that I've been able to thrive independently, and so have my children. And forgive me for wanting the same or similar for all residents of Norfolk, because I believe that you deserve better community services and more local services. What I have found in my time as a local councillor is that the way the planning system works encourages suburban sprawl to the extent where everybody is forced to use their cars because the distances from the new developments to the town centre are too big for people to manage comfortably on foot. So we all end up in our cars. And that was great back in the 80s, right? Or 90s, when fuel was cheap and it wasn't a problem. But right now, I think you'll agree, we are all facing really serious issues with the price of fuel, with the price of heating, with the price of electricity. And I think it's now important that we start building, and that's why this 20-minute neighbourhood thing is also here in front of you, is that we start thinking about how we can shape communities moving forward in a way that doesn't force us into cars, that forces us to think about what we can do, and perhaps choose, like we've all chosen to be here today, choose a way of life that actually supports us in a better way. So the 20-minute neighbourhood thing, and you will have heard because I've explained to the press on many occasions, it came from an invitation that I received to the Disabled Citizens Inquiry at the Theatre Royal last summer. And I was in a room at the Theatre Royal with a number of wheelchair users. And in one of the breakout sessions, it was proposed to me, what do you think about this 20-minute neighbourhood proposal? This would mean that the disabled people would be able to access their main services. They would be able to access the shop, the doctor, the pharmacy, everything that they need on a daily basis with an easy 10-minute there, 10-minute
Can't get
back.
into the doctors. You can't get into the doctors.
Try getting to the doctors.
Precisely.
We're going to put a new doctor.
Precisely. Hold on. And the reason for... So I said, let's explore this, because I bet that there are not many communities in Norfolk at the moment that enable you to live like this, and there are not. So I worked with officers, I'm speaking, I worked with officers.
Order, please. Order. I can see that there are two speakers waiting to speak, and they will get their microphones, and they will have the opportunity to ask questions and make their own points. But please do not interrupt the speakers. Lana.
Yeah, thank you, Louis. So at that meeting, I offered in my role as a county councillor to develop this concept of a 20-minute neighbourhood that would support disabled people, that would support local residents, and that would build resilience into communities in terms of local services to ensure that people weren't forced into cars, that people would have a choice to either walk, wheel, or cycle to their local amenities. And that's where this motion comes from. And that's where the motion that was put to Norfolk County Council on the 31st of December last year, that's where it comes from. Now, many of you would have read that motion and you would have thought, that sounds a bit vague. You know, I've had mine. You know, it doesn't say much. And do you know why that is? That motion is a backbench motion. I am not in the cabinet. I'm not a primary decision maker. I am merely a backbench county councillor who put forward an idea that I thought would benefit people in Norfolk. Norfolk County Council, we face a 60 million budget deficit. I could not tie the council down to expenditure with specific plans of how to implement this. But what I did say is that we will work with Transport East, the subnational transport body for the East of England, and other stakeholders, which includes town councils, which includes borough councils, which includes you, to ensure that whatever was proposed worked for everybody else. Now, where I would like to take this moving forward is on the 1st of June this year, Active Travel England, please feel free to Google it. Chris Boardman, the former Olympic cyclist, is on the commissioning panel for Active Travel England. On the 1st of June this year, Active Travel England become a statutory consultee for all major planning applications in this country. What I would like to see is to make sure that whatever Active Travel England say about development in Norfolk actually has some relevance to what we need here. It is actually meaningful for a rural county like we are. It is meaningful for a county that depends on cars day in, day out for people to get about. Because with the best will in the world, the bus network isn't developed enough. With the best will in the world, you've got a train station here and it's an amazing service up and down to Norwich, but it doesn't take you everywhere. With the best will in the world, we are a rural county and we need our cars and we need to get around. So I need to make sure that Active Travel England understand what infrastructure we have in place and what we need moving forward. And that's why it's important that this motion is on the cards at Norfolk County Council and that it underpins what we need as a county to enable us, within reason, to walk, cycle or wheel, get around in a wheelchair in a place that depends on cars for its economy to thrive. I'm going to leave it there because there's going to be questions, but that's
Okay,
it.
thank you, Lon.
It's not about restrictions. It's not about restricting the civil liberties. It's about helping communities be healthier and have more community cohesion.
Thank you, Lana. Very much appreciate you setting the scene there. Now, one of your local county councillors, Terry James, has caught my eye, and I'd like to ask Terry Jeremy, I beg your pardon. I think I think I've just married you to the mayor. Sorry. Terry Jeremy would like to speak.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for coming this evening. I just want to start off really by being very clear on where things are at the moment. Now, there has been no decision made to implement 20-minute neighbourhoods anywhere in Norfolk, including here in Thetford. And Jane and I, at a public council meeting, Norfolk County Council on Tuesday, we both separately asked a question to the leader of Norfolk County Council, who categorically confirmed no decisions have been made to implement this policy anywhere. Where we're at is members of the County Council, as Lana has outlined, very briefly touched upon the issue at the County Council meeting on the 13th of December. But it was not a green light to proceed, as has been suggested by some. The vote that was taken was not even an endorsement of the concept. Lana's motion, which was a good motion, was about reviewing 20-minute neighbourhoods, particularly with a Norfolk context. Because when you hear about 20-minute neighbourhoods, when you hear about low emission zones, it's very much your Bristols, your Cambridges, your Londons, your Oxfords, big cities. Just won't work here in Norfolk, particularly here in Thetford. It takes me 40 minutes to walk from one side of Thetford to the other. That motion received unanimous consent because it was about getting information, and on the whole, councillors like to get information before they make a decision, believe it or not. And so the motion sought to get information to do it. It is clear that 20-minute neighbourhoods mean different things to different people. And what I hope that the motion, by being adopted, will achieve is defining what it is, because it clearly does mean different things to different people. Now, let me be absolutely clear on my own position. If any introduction of a 20-minute neighbourhood meant cars would be banned, as has been suggested, or fines or financial penalties introduced for using your car, as has also been suggested, then I believe this would be a non-starter. It would be illogical, it would be unenforceable, and just plain wrong. If any future 20-minute neighbourhood proposals for Thetford sought to restrict movement, impose fines, or otherwise curtail personal freedoms, then I would be totally against, and I would vote strongly against. And Jane James has said the same at the initial meeting. Now, what I am in favour of, and I think the vast majority of us are in favour of, is proposals that would enable people to access more services on foot, or by cycle, or by public transport. I want that choice, and I think others want that choice too. Investment in services is badly needed, and one of the reasons people are now so reliant on cars is because services have been reduced. A really good example, the Cottage Hospital in Thetford, just down the road. Services that were once there, you now have to go to Bury St Edmunds to access. We need access to local services to reduce the reliance on cars. I'm all for encouraging people to walk more, to cycle more. The council should absolutely be enabling that and supporting that, but I am not in favour of forcing people out of their car, and I don't believe this is what is being considered. I believe in personal choices and personal freedoms. And I want to be very clear on that. I think we're being encouraged to be against something which isn't even being proposed. And I hope that will come out in the debate this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'd now like to call on the first of the speakers of the lectern. Could you tell us your name and ask your question, make your point?
Yes, my name is Dennis Crawford. My question is, if this was to take place, what makes you think there's going to be any more infrastructure in Thetford than there is now? Why can't we have the infrastructure now without this being imposed upon us?
Yeah.
I think Lana would like to answer that.
What you'll know, so whenever a developer comes forward, for those of you, well, for us councillors anyway, we know that there's always a tug of war for something called Section 106 money, which is the part of the developer contribution that enables services. And that Section 106 money has to be distributed and paid for homes, it has to pay for high-risk contributions, and it has to pay for a whole host of things. Now, the way things have gone so far is that balance is a tricky one. It really is, and those services are difficult to maintain, and they're difficult to. It's a constant tug of war. Like, honestly, sometimes it's really not fun being a councillor, because keeping those services in place, especially when they are private services, like all the GP practices are now private businesses, it's hard. It's really hard. And that's why it's, to me, personally, on this issue, it's really good that Active Travel England are coming online with their statutory responsibility for planning consultation responses, because they will glance over your large planning applications for 150 dwellings and over, and they'll be able to say if what is proposed in there is actually something that's going to support you in terms of walking and cycling and wheeling. But it's a constant tug of war.
No heckling, please. I think she is answering.
Can I reply to that quickly?
Okay, yes, sir.
Thank you. I've been a councillor since 2010. I've been a county councillor, I've been a district councillor and town councillor. And we've always had to fight for 106 money. This is not going to increase the 106 money in any way. So I don't see any advantage to it at all. I think we need to have better infrastructure, but I can't see how this is going to improve it. So thank you.
On Bob Sayes, to my left, who's asked to speak.
Need a microphone, Bob.
Right. So this is a question for Lana Hensel, really. On the 9th of March 2023, there was an article in the EDP stating that you came up with this idea, and you've just backed it up. You said this was like your idea to come up with a 20-minute zone. Now, there's a hell of a lot of people in this room that have a very good understanding of geopolitics, and they have a very good understanding of corporate infiltration into government, whether it be local or national. Now, my question to you is, if this was your idea, are you proud that your idea has actually gone worldwide?
Well done. Well done, Bob.
Does that work? Yeah. Can I just say, I voted to leave the European Union. So I voted to leave the European Union, and the reason for that was that I kind of believed in sovereignty of this country and sovereignty of it making, our own laws, etc. So the whole geopolitical thing, I'm really sorry, Bob, but I don't really know how that's relevant to what I proposed. My idea came from specifically being in a room full of people in a wheelchair who will never be able to walk independently, who turned to me and said, look, as a local council, what can you do to help us live more independently? And that was one of their suggestions as to how we could enable communities to work better for them if they could have communities where they had everything on their doorstep. So I don't recognise the geopolitical aspect of it. I mean, because I don't actually think that my proposal went viral. I think what I've been hearing on the internet is something completely different went viral, and that's what's being promoted. So I don't think that the model that I suggested at Norfolk County Council is the one that you're referring to.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I have a speaker in the green. Could you please give us your name and ask your question? Make your comment.
My name is Steve Folger. I've lived in this town all my life. Whilst we're on the subject of asking questions for a show of hands, could I just ask who would like to buy me a pint? Or who would like me to buy them a pint after the show tonight? Can you raise your hands? It's very easy, isn't it? Get people to raise their hands. Yeah. So I've lived here all my life. For the past 9 years I've worked in Cambridge. I have a 78 mile drive every day to and from that because there aren't skilled jobs in Thetford. As of last year, I have to drive to Norwich to see a dentist because there's no dentist places in Thetford. I can see a GP by video. So what I'd like to know is how are these proposals, how are you going to improve on what we already have? Because it's appalling services. We've got 5,000 new homes in this town, all paying council tax. I asked Brecon Council 2 years ago about services to go with that, such as nursery places, preschool places, primary school places, GPs, dentists, emergency services, and they declined to answer me until I nagged and nagged and nagged, and in the end, they asked me to submit a Freedom of Information request, which I did, and the answer to that was, it's not up to us, it's up to those individual providers to provide those services. But Brecon are still taking the council tax from 5,000 new homes. The way I understand economics, if there's more people contributing for the same level of service, it should go down, but we've just had a 5% increase. So what are we going to do? And also, I would like to say, I have a disabled friend who saw me in the crowd in the video from the last meeting, and she messaged me and said, if they take away my car, how will I get to my hospital appointments? So the disabled thing, there's two sides to that story. But that's it's more of a statement than a question, but if anybody would like to elaborate on that, you're welcome to.
Okay, thank you, sir. We've been asked by Bob Staines for an opportunity to come back on Lion's response. Over to you, Bob.
Yeah, basically what it is that you've clarified again it was your idea because of the disabilities and what have you. Are you actually aware of the fact that there's towns in the United Kingdom and in Europe and across the world that seem to have instigated exactly the same restrictive measures which have resulted in fines and restrictions in travel and what have you? Now, you said that there will be no restrictions in travel, etc. What comes across on a personal opinion is that you have received a top-down order to place some kind of scheme before the council, and it was announced in the EDP. We've lost it. No, we haven't. So there seems to be a massive coincidence that this has been rolled out in Oxford and Canterbury, and I think there's one in Scotland, there's Newcastle in Australia, there's Paris, all from one idea. Surely this is a top-down order.
Okay, Lana, have you been ordered from the top down to raise this issue?
Thanks, Bob, thanks, Steve, but the answer is just no. I haven't been ordered by anybody to... Sorry?
questions to the chair. No heckling, please.
Yeah.
Lana.
Yeah, Bob, I'm
Lana, you need to come away from your PC, which is causing the feedback. Yeah, that's causing the feedback. If you come away from it, you'll find it die down.
Use his mic.
that's better, that's better. Look, guys, okay, I really appreciate your concern, but the answer's just no. I honestly didn't pick this up from the internet. I haven't got anybody from the World Economic Forum in my contact list on my phone. I've never even heard of them. Like, seriously, I've never even, actually, but seriously, God, you won't believe me. But right, so when this all went, so when the EDP article came out in January, and I read what was in there, I had to Google the vast majority of the accusations, and I'm going to say, but you know, most, I had to Google them. I'm really sorry, you know, pardon my ignorance, Bob, but I had to Google what the World Economic Forum did. I had to, who's the other guy? Schwab, is that somebody? Yeah, I had to Google him and his completely. But seriously, I don't know how to prove the maps and so on, but like literally, I've never heard of them. Like, I've literally never heard of them, and I had to Google it, and like, my Google history is now destroyed completely, because I've gone to look at, Bob, I promise you.
So, have you heard of Agenda 2030?
I have now. I have now. I have to find out, but it's not part of that, like, seriously. I have now.
Okay, I think.
I really hate to disappoint you and you, Steve, but I've never heard of it before. Never. You know, you guys are streets ahead of me.
I think Lana has answered that point. We move on to the lady in the red. Give your name and ask your question, make your point.
Thank you, good evening. My name is Carla Barreto. Some of you know me because I also sit as an independent councillor on council here in Desford. When we had the previous meeting, which was overwhelmed by visitors, which I usually think is a great thing because that means people is interested in whatever's going on in town. So I always encourage people to take part and have a voice. The one thing that was raised, and there were some points about what's going on in other towns currently, Oxford being one of the examples, where some measures have been introduced that led to the restrictions, if we can call it that, and for people to be penalized if they travel further afield for more than a certain stipulated number of times. And some people indeed received fines or notifications regarding that, and I think that was part of the issue that was making a lot of people upset. They did not want that for Desford. I, for once, don't want that for Desford. I made that very clear that I'm one for freedom of rights and freedom of you know, people doing what they should do and moving back and forth. There should be no type of restriction whatsoever, even because they refuse to do human rights, people not to be controlled. Yes, like Anna said, this is a sovereign country. I, on the other hand, did not have the option to vote to stay or to leave EU, merely because I am a EU citizen. Not that it makes much difference, but I do have to consider that our town is made of a lot of people from a lot of communities, and a lot of people that work, studies, brings their children, has their businesses, and makes their life together in Desford as residents, as one people. Ultimately, I want what's best for all of Desford, whether or not this may be somebody that's been living here with brought up their families or have a full history here since they thought, or where somebody that shows Desford as a town to settle because I thought it was a good place to build a life and to raise a family and to move into. The one question I had for Lana is, if you came up with the idea, where exactly did you base the concept? You just mentioned that you did not, you were not told by hierarchy to follow this particular plan. My question is, where did you come up with the idea then, and who else supported it at that time? And that's my question. And also, as a last point, if you know, there's obviously two sides, conversion sides. There's the ones that do not want people things to be restricted, which I mentioned, and I fully agree. And that's, if anything would just go to their way, whatever for is worth of my vote, I would vote against it. I would never be in favor of anything restricts anybody's right to do as they wish and move around. Even particularly as a rural area, they did raise a valid point. Even if you are disabled, you still need your car. We are in an area where everything is scattered around. The other last question I have is, it is best, let's put it this way, it is best to have the thing infrastructure first, rather than asking the people what is needed. We all know what is needed. We need doctors, we need dentists, we need schools, etc. But what is already in the lineup? What is county council? What is the authorities already doing? What's the plan to actually implement those infrastructures? Which schools are we getting? And when? By which deadline? Which doctors? Which new GP or clinics are being built? Because ultimately, if they are being built, and if they're being implemented on the local communities, that means people will have to drive around. It's illogical. In a cause and consequence. Let's put infrastructure in place rather than asking people whether or not they want to move further afield for it. Yeah. People don't want to move further afield. People just want things locally. And that, yes, they would be within a 20-minute area of moving around and facilitating people walking or cycling there. But that doesn't mean they're going to stop using their cars. That just means they ought to put it in place first, and then hopefully the car use will reduce as a consequence of having the things locally. Thank you.
So the two questions were, what were the origins of this idea? What prompted you to initiate this study? And the second question was, what infrastructure plans are in the pipeline in order to support this?
Oh, right. But in terms of where it came from, I think I've explained that a few times. So again, it really was from that disabled citizens inquiry that I attended. When it comes to infrastructure and what goes into it, as I said, I'm the member champion for sustainable transport, and with Transport East, which is your sub-national transport body, I'm particularly involved with active travel. So where I'm hoping this will go is going to be particularly around infrastructure for walking and cycling, because in Norfolk, I think Tom will back me up on this one, we haven't done terribly well with active travel funding in the past.
I think she is addressing these questions. The call from the floor, Lana, was what about doctors, shops, and that kind of thing?
As I said, the 20-minute, I agree, we need all of those, but what I was proposing with the 20-minute neighbourhood motion is to do with the active travel infrastructure.
Can we hear from the other councillors?
Yeah, you can, of course. I'm just
Okay, before we go to the other
That's your idea.
Before we go to the other councillors, I'd like to call on Mike Ball to speak.
Yeah, loud and clear. Okay, that's clearly evident of what's happening here to be, from my point of view, just sitting listening to it, we're batting the ball about and nobody's actually landing it in the net. Yeah. What we need to do is land the ball in the net, and very simply, because our primary concern, as I see it tonight, is are we going to have our vehicles restricted? Are we going to be imposed with fines? Are we going to have movements restricted? The infrastructure, not being funny, but we can discuss that, but we'll probably discuss that at future meetings, or we can address it by logging onto the government website. So the primary thing that we need to know tonight is when we leave here that there is no imposition planned for Thetford. No matter what infrastructure we get, there's no imposition planned, no penalties planned, no ANPR cameras, no restrictions on movement and everything else. Who agrees with that? Not the right way, Deputy.
Should be a result of good practice.
Very quickly, we can land that ball in the back of the net. Are Norfolk County Council prepared to issue a letter outlining that there will be no impositions, no restrictions, no fines, no movement orders, etc., etc., whilst they carry out the trial town for Thetford for a 20-minute neighbourhood? If you are, then to be honest with you, if you do that and you document it and you send it through live, we're on ITV, we're on Rebel News, we're on YouTube, whatever. If you're prepared to do that, which, you know, hopefully Tom will be able to say in a minute and make that decision, or tell us how he's going to make that decision. But if we get that answer tonight, then that really has put our minds at rest, because we can be here and we go, well, what doctors we're going to get, what dentists. Listen, that goes to planning. Nobody knows that. What are you going to have for dinner tomorrow? Well, nobody knows. Do you know what I mean? And that's a simple one. So all we need really is reassurance that we aren't going to be in the same position Oxford are, which I've got to be honest is in a poor position. But I understand the concerns, and mine is one of them, because we were in a similar position, pre-election, post-election. Pre-election Oxford, no, we never do that to you, never do that to you. Post-election Oxford, yeah, sorry about that. Deal with it. And we don't want to be in that position. So this is where we need to do. So I'll hit the ball, hopefully it will go in the back of the net. Are Norfolk County Council prepared on this occasion, if we accept that we're going to be a trial town, to confirm without a doubt that no impositions on vehicles, no restrictions on movements, no penalties, no fines, no ANPR cameras, we can carry on our lives exactly as it was, and effectively, from Lana's point of view, disabled people's lives get better. If that is acceptable to everybody here tonight, then the meeting really it doesn't need to go on for much longer than that. If the Norfolk County Council will agree to that. So that's all we need, but we need it in written confirmation, because I have to be honest, we, over the last 3 years, have lost trust. We've lost trust in the system. We as a nation have been lied to. I'm not saying Norfolk County Council because you were following orders, but from a government point of view, from a London point of view, it's all becoming clear now. We have been labelled conspiracy theories. There's a fine line, I believe, between a conspiracy theorist and a prophet, because pretty much everything we came out with is now becoming true. But we're still labelled as conspiracy theorists because it's easier to undermine and discredit than it is to listen. And as Mark Twain said, quite rightly, it's easy to fool a person, but very difficult to convince a person they've been fooled, because you're up against pride. So if Norfolk County Council will accept that responsibility to send a letter through to every resident, and I mean every resident, they can't miss people out, every resident, whether on the electoral register or not, they're going to have to sort that through. But every resident gets a letter to say that you will be not restricted, no movement, etc., etc. I think it's clear what I'm asking.
To address that question, please.
Mike, really happy to address that absolutely straight on. There is no plan. There is no plan for Thetford. There is no plan to restrict ANPRs and whatever in Thetford at all.
Ever.
Oh, never say never, because So I was listening to Bob. We've got traffic restrictions on movement already. There's double yellow lines outside where we can't park. There's one-way streets. There's pedestrian bits. That's all. You know, I was watching one of your videos. That's done with consent, and that's the thing. So a good story is 2-3 years ago, Terry and Roy Graham, I think, were the county councillors. And people might remember there was a tragic accident when there was a gentleman killed on one of the roads into the town in a 40-mile-an-hour zone, and there was I think quite rightly, a groundswell of opinion saying that's too fast. Terry, Roy went to the county council and said we want the speed limits reduced, and it didn't happen overnight. I don't know what to think.
18 months, a couple of years, and we managed to reduce that to 30 miles an hour. There isn't a plan. Before you had your meeting, Jane, Mike, was it a month ago?
Yeah,
We'd only spent literally a couple of hours talking to Lana about this. There isn't a big team designing 20 minutes neighbourhoods for Norfolk. What people have done in Cambridge, in Oxford, the mayor's low emission zone in London, they can do what they want to do in London. I don't see a low emission zone in Thetford in my lifetime. So I can categorically state there is no plan to restrict movements, those liberties, people getting in and out with their private car to school, to hospital, zero plan. Absolutely categorically.
So can you issue a written statement?
And Tom, you'd be prepared to send a letter to each resident of Thetford just so that we can get that confirmed?
I can send a letter to the town council, to something like that. I might find myself on YouTube. I've said it. I'm quite happy to put something in writing to the town council, to the mayor, copy you in, so it can be shared. There isn't a plan. Okay, thank you.
Firstly, thank you, Tom. I appreciate your answer. Realistically, it's not for me to decide. You know, I'm a bit of I've been targeted as a leader of this. I'm not. I'm a member of the community, exactly the same as you are. Personally, I hear that answer, and realistically, we're not going to get much better than that. You know, if I'm honest, I mean, Tom has answered it. And to be fair to him, he can't see the future. What he can see is the current future. So maybe, you know, I don't know about you lads, but
okay, let's before I take Lana's question, there's a lady in black who'd like to speak. Please give your name and ask your question, make a point.
Excuse me. My name is Dion, and I've been a Thetford resident since birth. When I was born, or since my childhood, I can remember 20-minute towns like Lana has described. I could go to a play park 5 minutes away. I could go to a post office that was just across the road to where I lived. I could go to school, which was 5 minutes round the corner. People didn't have cars then, and it was bliss. And over time, I've seen Thetford get bigger and facilities get smaller. And no member of the council has been able to draw funding down to cope with the population, making it that now we have to go out of town, people have to go out of town to get the services and access to schools and dentists and doctors and that kind of thing. So I'm curious to know what is different about this, and why have the council been unable to draw funding as we've grown, but suddenly there's funding available for this new proposal. What is different now than in the past?
So the first thing is, I agree. I can remember, having 2 shops within walking distance of where I lived. There isn't a budget for 20-minute towns. So that's how, if I use the term embryonic, it is. It is fascinating and interesting. You say the population of Norfolk now is 900,000 and rising. There is an under provision of GPs, dentists, as we've talked about. Where does the county council's money go? About 75% of the county council's money goes on looked after children and adult social care. So we're spending about 75% of our budget on about 5% of the population who need a very intensive care. The remainder goes on everything from the fire service to highways to libraries, etc. the NHS, there was the survey this week. People's satisfaction with it has never been lower. We're in a really difficult position. Mike said it's been a hard 3 years. Hopefully the only way is up.
Okay, thank you. Could I ask Lana to speak, and then you say you wanted to speak.
I just wanted to
I
add
mean,
to
what I'm hoping that this will do is, I spoke here about Active Travel England and the way they become statutory consultees. They also fund active travel projects in Norfolk, and what I'd like to see is, because, you know, by actually putting some flesh on the bones of what we would like to see, is that we more effectively draw down funding from Active Travel England. I guess what I was going to ask you, you know, moving forward, because, you know, Mike was quite clear. I mean, I hope what Tom said works for you. But what would be quite nice for me, because I hope what's been clear is that this is so early on, is I'd really love to, you know, if you guys are on board with, you know, building in this infrastructure into Thetford, is that perhaps, you know, we could have a meeting, you know, sometime in June to talk about what you would like to have in Thetford.
Doctors?
No, in terms of, okay, so what I'm talking about specifically is the active travel infrastructure. So I do get the doctors, I do get everything else, but from a sustainable transport point of view, what I'm hoping to draw down, as I said, is the active travel.
There's no buses after 6 p.m.
So that's my question. Would you be up for that?
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I mean, one of my suggestions was that we have a working, a review group of community members that work alongside the council, so that we can actually see the transparency and we can see the plan develop. And I think it would be very beneficial to have a working group from the community working with the council about a trial within our town. And yeah, I can't see a problem with that. You know, a meeting coming down here and having a one-on-one, and then I've got to go back to Zinni. I think we need a working committee or a peer review group set up in the council. Set up in the community here. They would need to be chosen. They would need to be elected, etc., and it would need to be done properly. You know, just coming down for a quick chat with
Could we please move on to the next speaker from the floor, the gentleman in black? Once again, give us your name and...
Hello, my name is Rob Thompson. Really, what I'm trying to do here is try to give the council a sense of why a great many of these people are here. Speak calm, I'm glad you mentioned conspiracy theory. Rubbished many hundreds of concerned people, calling them anti-vaxxers, hard-right wingers, tin hatters, etc. I would also add great respect for what the council do, and I know Acle very well, having lived in Little Plumstead for a great many years. It's a lovely little place. It would be nice to have lots of little Acles in Thetford, equalising time and space, but I don't think Einstein can crack that one. What I want to refer to, some of the background to some articles in the recent Telegraph, the well-known Tin Hatters. Oxford concealed key climate zone data. Oxford Council chiefs covered up that data and risked jeopardising its highly controversial climate zones, which will ban residents from travelling directly between suburbs. Tory councillors are now demanding that the Labour, Lib Dem, Green coalition return to the drawing board, criticising them for acting like masters who railroaded through climate ideas in a democracy-free zone. It goes on at great length, the activities that they employed in order to do this, and in actual fact, failed to disclose that their plans would actually create No, I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but I want you to understand why a great many of these people here are suspicious and why they are not prepared to just take your word for it. Anyway, it gets better. Going back to conspiracy theories. This is the Daily Telegraph again, well-known tin hackers. Net zero is a Trojan horse for the destruction of Western life. Now, these are larger issues that are now reaching the mainstream press. And I think it's in the back of the mind of a lot of the audience here. Perhaps not everyone, but certainly Bob's on board with this. So it's not so much a question, it's more trying to help you understand why a lot of people are here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. The man in the jacket there. Again, please give your name and make it.
Hi, good evening everyone. Name's Craig. Moved back from London about 15 years ago, love Thetford. There was a lot of talk about infrastructure earlier on. Now, I'd like to ask all the councillors, how much money out of the public purse has been taken to put up the Philips smart lighting that we see everywhere? Because if you know anything about the Philips smart lighting and the capabilities of it, then you will understand that the prison's already being built around us. And this comes from a lot higher than what everybody's being made to believe. So is there a price tag on how much all the street lightings cost? Could that have been used on doctors, dentists, services for people?
You were saying street lighting?
Yes.
Yes, so we spend, the county council spend, we've got 60, 70,000 street lights probably across.
Which all started going up through the lockdown.
No, we've had street lights in Norfolk for, we're meant to be as advanced as London.
No, but these new street lights, the smart lights, which is part of the smart city network.
Well, yes, so we've been doing LED lights in Norfolk for probably about 7-8 years. So those are low electricity, like you do at home.
So they're not the Philips street lights that are linked up, that are actually on the World Economic Forum website. That are part of the proposed smart cities.
What I can tell you about the LEDs that we have is, yes, they're all linked up to each other, so someone can sit in County Hall. Someone can sit in County Hall and turn the lights up or down. We have timers on them so that they dim at midnight and light up again.
And they can also record you and your movements, track you.
No, they're street lights.
I think you're unaware of that.
Yeah, but that's different from CCTV.
They're all part and parcel of the same thing. They're all part of the smart city network. When you start digging deep and start having a look into this, it's all part of the same construct.
So all I can tell you is what we're doing is we have upgraded probably about 60-70% of our street lights from the old sodium lights that people will remember that used to be orange. We now have a much whiter LED street light. They're smart lights, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
but they don't record images.
So you're unaware of the full capabilities of these things?
I've got CCTV cameras, but these aren't cameras. These are lights, street lights.
So we take your word for
Thank you,
that.
Tom. Okay, can we move on to the next question?
Good evening, I'm Kirsty Robb. That will probably pace what I was about to say, which I consider myself to be a relatively intelligent human being. Can't operate a microphone, but I am a relatively intelligent person with an IQ slightly higher than that of a parsnip. With that in mind, only just, but with that in mind, what I would like to ask is, as Dion mentioned earlier, I thought that was a really valid point. I love Thetford. I'm very proud of my hometown. I used to love it. Thetford was a place of community. We used to have May Day parades. We used to be able to walk into the town, buy anything from a jar of coffee to a 3-piece sweet. We had banks. We were really spoiled. We had, we didn't have an abundance of charity shops and estate agents. It was a thriving town. I remember getting into Abbey Farm Estate with my grandmother on a busy bus. You remember busy bus? Yeah? Out of everybody here, do you all remember going onto the housing estates, Pine Close, St John's, Abbey Farm, any of these housing estates, and being able, as Dion pointed out, to go to a post office, to go to a primary school, to go to a park, to be able to facilitate these things? We had that infrastructure in place. It was in place. So what I'm curious to find out, if you're telling us that this is in such an embryonic state at the moment, and it is just a proposal, I'm willing to accept that. I'm willing to understand and accept that it's going to take time to construct. What I don't understand, with that in mind, everything that you've stated so far this evening, you haven't answered any of the questions. Not one. You mentioned not one. With respect, Ryan, with the very greatest respect, thank you for sharing your life story with us. That's great. I'm very grateful for you doing that. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way or a patronising way. I'm grateful that you have made yourself a human being. Thank you for sharing that with us. However, every person in this room could do the same thing. What you haven't done is get to the nitty-gritty of it and tell us the answers to our questions. I want to know, you mentioned that you cancelled down the 40-mile-an-hour restrictions on the Norwich Road. I completely and wholeheartedly support that decision. What I do not support is that you did it without changing any street signage. Any street signage. You then imposed fines on people for breaking those speed restrictions. I appreciate that the highway code says that it's a 30-mile-an-hour zone in a restricted area, in a residential area. I appreciate that, but you had set a precedent for many, many, many decades of 40 miles an hour. To change it overnight, the people of Thetford found out about that on Thetford Forum. That's just gross incompetence. So now, with the greatest respect, thank you, with the greatest respect, your words, therefore, that you can categorically assure us that this is not going to impact our movements and restrict our movements. And yes, I'll write a letter, but I can only do it for now, not the future. I'm sorry it carries no weight. Nothing you have done so far in this town has been progressive, supportive, or beneficial. And it's absolutely abhorrent. Absolutely abhorrent. I would be very pleased to see the likes of Mike Ford. I would be very pleased to see the likes of a lot of the people in this town who actually are passionate about it. So many things have happened in this town where profits have gone missing. Who asked for the £20,000 to be spent on pretty little lights in the market square? Seriously, it's an abomination, and honestly, I'd love to have some answers to those questions.
Okay,
I'll try and pick a few of those up in one go if I can. Firstly, Dion, you grew up in the same estate as I did. I remember, it is an irony, isn't it? Because the whole concept of 20-minute neighbourhoods is what we used to have. You know, estates with shops in the middle, and you could walk to the industrial estate. And it's true, lots of those services have gone for a variety of reasons. Some of it is about funding, but also some of it is about changes in people's lifestyles. Pine Close shops, I remember growing up, vegetable shop, butchers, people go to Sainsbury's now. There's no market for small independent shops because people's shopping habits have changed. The whole culture around going to your local convenience store has changed, and thank goodness we've still got a few sort of staying there. But there are other challenges too, and Tom spoke about adult social care. When I first joined Norfolk County Council 10 years ago, the total budget spend on adult social care was 40%. The fact that it's now gone up past 50%, 60%, 70%, we have got to address some big challenges in this country about how we fund council services, and one of the biggest is adult social care. Any council who has a responsibility to provide care for the elderly is struggling financially because we're all getting older. Norfolk particularly is a county where there's a lot of older people and we're living longer and that is expensive. And that is a national challenge which is impacting us here on Thetford and in Norfolk, and inevitably filters down to Thetford, filters down to other council services. One of the biggest issues we've got is the current governance is too complicated. We have a town council, we have a district council, we have Norfolk County Council, we have Flagship Housing Association, we have all sorts of different organisations responsible for different things, different budgets, and we've absolutely got to sort the governance structure out. Perhaps a directly elected mayor for Norfolk, a directly elected police commissioner we've already got. It is a very complicated mess and it is expensive. These are all, some of them exist, some of them are proposals. Dentists. I hear time and time again the challenges of getting a dentist. I have to drive my own mother to Brandon to access a dentist. And if any of you are enrolled on dentistry in Brandon, you would have heard this week that that's going too. Not because of funding. The issue with dentistry in Thetford is not because of funding. It is a national issue about the inability to recruit dentists. Some of our challenges are about funding, but dentistry specifically is more about the inability to recruit dentists. National problem impacts us here in Thetford. The chap that spoke about being suspicious of councils, I completely understand that. I completely understand you being suspicious of councillors, of councils. I think a degree of scepticism is very useful. Jane and I are your two Norfolk County councillors for Thetford. I have had one phone call and one email about 20-minute neighbourhoods. I am more than happy for anybody to ring me, to email me, to sit down and talk to me about your concerns. I have a surgery every 2 weeks where you can come and see me. You can email me. We have a town council meeting, full council, every single month. Those of us that are councillors in Thetford are just as passionate about you are. I was born here. I want to see Thetford thrive. I want to see these services addressed and the challenges addressed. We had a 2-hour meeting on Tuesday, full council, last Tuesday of the month, where we debated lots of these issues. And a really good example, Kirsty, 40 mile an hour zones. We said on Tuesday, Norfolk County Council absolutely dropped the ball when they changed the speed limit from 40 to 30. It wasn't deliberate, in my opinion. It was, if I may, pop-up rather than conspiracy. They took the 40 mile an hour signs down and they should have had much clearer communication. Jane and I have both said that as your county councillors to make it clearer that those changes were coming. But my plea to all of you is work with your elected representatives, whoever they are. Jane and I are different political parties. There's all sorts of colours and shades on the town council. We all want what's best for Thetford. Some of us might disagree on how we might get there, but we all want what's best. Work with us to try and improve Thetford. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have another speaker and then I'm going to call on Mike to address the issue of town mayors.
Hello there, my name is Dave Adam. I've been sitting here listening to what you had to say. And you turned around and indicated that you've got no plans of putting barriers up, you've got no plans of putting cameras up to see whether people go out in certain zone areas. So if we look at Oxford, just on a trial, why have they got the barriers and why have they got the cameras to watch people go out in zone areas, and why are they still being fined for actually doing that?
Okay, I think we'll with respect, this isn't about Oxford, and I don't think anyone here...
No, it probably isn't, but what I'm trying to indicate is, if it's already there, and you want to bring it to Thetford, surely that must be indicating that you want to...
No, I don't think they do want to bring the Oxford situation to Thetford.
So, I'm quite happy to back it up. The technology is there. We've got ANPR cameras. The police have been using ANPR cameras for years. The thing is, there has to be, and I'll use the consent word again. So another good example, if you're introducing a residence parking scheme, and I don't think there's Manny in Thetford. Whenever you're doing that, what you're saying is you create a zone and you say it'll only be residents allowed. So in Norwich city centre, there's quite a few of them. It's only residents from this area who can park on the streets. So it's to stop commuters or whatever parking there. What we do is we have a public consultation, effectively it votes, because what you're doing is you're saying to people, we're going to restrict parking on your residential streets. There's advantages for you because it means as a resident you've got a chance of getting a parking space. But if the local community don't want a residence parking, if the public consultation goes against it, then it doesn't happen because you need that consent. And again, as and when we begin to draw ideas for 20 minutes neighbourhood zones, you need to have that consent with it. And I think that would be a good safeguard. And there may well be areas in Norwich that want a 20-minute neighbourhood. Acle might want a 20-minute neighbourhood, but if Thetford says not in my Nelly, that's Thetford's right to say we don't want it. You stop it.
You're indicating that the 20 minutes is supposed to be 10 minutes to be able to walk to anywhere you want to get what you need, and 10 minutes to walk back to your home. Is that correct?
That's kind of the general principle of a 20-minute neighbourhood, and I mean one of the people that have contacted me since this went public is an organisation called Shop Local Norfolk, because they represent local shop owners and local businesses, and I guess they're feeling the pinch of the change of our shopping habits, like Tom said and Terry said. It's not about restrictions, it's about building that choice in and to make sure that the active travel infrastructure is baked into any new development moving forward. This is not about restricting you. And you know, my offer still stands for anything moving forward. I'd actually love to, meet you and Mike and Steve and, just to bottom it out, what you would specifically like to see in Thetford, because, as Tom said, it's not one size fits all, and most certainly, as I said, it's not about restrictions. It can't be about restrictions. This is a free country.
Well, my other question is really, for instance, you indicate that you want people to walk more, you want people to ride their bikes, but people are doing that now. So what is the point of this 20 minutes? If it's for people's freedom, people have already got the freedom. They don't need this 20 minutes. So what is the point of having 20 minutes when people are already doing what you've indicated of cycling, walking, people with wheelchairs being able to get around? What is the point of the 20 minutes then? If people are already doing it.
The point is, okay, well, the point is to get perhaps more segregated cycle routes in, so that cycling becomes safer than it is right now. Because,
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Use the other mic. Closer. No, use the other one. What works?
Right, can you hear me now? Yeah. It works when I stand up. Okay. So the active travel money is money that is specifically designed for modes of active travel, which means walking, cycling, wheeling. We haven't had enough active travel investment in Norfolk, full stop, for a while. And this 20-minute neighbourhood concept will hopefully promote more investment into Norfolk so that we get our fair share of government investment into active travel
into Norfolk. It's not about it's about giving everybody choice.
Okay, thank you, Lana. I think that point's been made. I'm now going to ask Mike to comment on theirs, and then I'll go to the gentleman in the front.
I've got maybe 2 or 3 things that I want to say. First thing is I'm really glad this is being filmed, and the reason being for that is the generations that are actually going to benefit from the infrastructure, because it's going to take that long, will be able to look back and see how we discussed their future. Because it's obviously going to be about 100 years, I should imagine. We've got Section 106, we've got 60 million deficit. I've got to be honest, that's not a good position to go for a loan for, is it? I'm 60 million in the debt, but I want to borrow some more money. Got to be honest, maybe have a word with Rishi. He's got a little bit of a link there, hasn't he?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe he'll dig his hand in his pocket. Klaus Schwab that you've never heard of, he might be worth a £60 million quid deficit, so we now know that our generations in future, it was a good time, become a bad time. Hopefully now when you're watching this, it's a better time for you, and you've got a doctors and a dentists. Regarding your, Terry mentioned about only one email and a couple of bits, I've got to be honest, my inbox is full, but people trust me. And I just see that this whole plan, if I was you, I'd scrap it until you're in a position to give it a little bit of depth. Because what we've got is, in the nicest possible way, at the minute, we've just spent the whole evening being narcissistic to disabled people. Because what we're telling them is what we want to give them, but you're not going to get it just yet. And that's me done, really, to be honest. I haven't got much to add to this meeting. I thought it was going to go better, really, from my point of view. You've come down here, and Kirsty's right in a way. You've skirted around the answers. We've found out a life story. We're no further forward. Terry touched on devolution in his little speech about a Grand Poobah mayor. We need to bring everything in from London. Let's bring it all in from London and have... That's devolution. Why don't you just be honest? Can you be honest? We had a devolution meeting here. You've already agreed devolution. Brett Glenda pulled out the legal challenge. Do you think we're stupid people? Do you think I'm a stupid person? Let's make it more specific. Because if you do, I'll challenge you. Definitely. Because I've got more support here than you could ever wish for. 100%. And on that note, I've got a little old... Bob's got a little announcement, if we can, please. We'll just use that and use my speech.
Okay, so this whole thing has been born out of a few tin hatters that used to meet up on the green by the river called the Standing Park. Right? So we got ourselves together and thought we'd know what was going on. So off the back of that, and the announcement of mistrust in councils and certain individuals, our Stand in the Park group have decided the way forward is to have some of a stand for town, district, council seats. Absolutely none of us had ever envisaged the need to take such steps, but now it seems the right thing to do. Historically, we've had an abundance of left versus right, red versus blue, with a smattering of alternative. A system where it has become the norm to have a top-down approach to decision making. So, what we are going to do is put forward a number of independent candidates that, if elected to town, district or both, will push hard for a bottom-up approach to decision making in Thetford. As such, we will not be accountable to the whip or bound by party politics. One of our proposals discussed and agreed upon by all of us, and as we are representing the people in the truest sense, is that the fees traditionally paid to councillors for their services be paid into a secure account and held for the people of the town as a slush fund for those who may need help, situations such as the house fires a few months ago. All we need you to do now is to vote for us in your respective wards. We will not canvass or pester you on the doorsteps. What we will rely on now is for you, the people of Thetford, to spread the word. Consider this the first step in taking back your sovereignty.
Bob, you've had your word. Can we move on?
No, you might want to do one.
So far we have 15 candidates, and we will announce the candidates to the respective wards once we finalise.
Yeah, well done.
Hi, I'm Sally Ladford, and I now live in Watton. I did live in Thetford for many, many years, and might I say, we have the same lighting and cameras in Watton too, which is quite concerning. But my question to the councillors is, our government, who work for us, and our council, who also work for us, should be doing the things that we want. My question to you is, if the government implement these 20-minute zones, do you have to follow what they say?
Tom? No, that's a delegated matter for, in this instance, the County Council to decide if they want to implement anything like the 20-minute zones. All traffic matters you are decided in Norfolk.
I actually disagree with that. I think you do have, if they do want to have this all in place across the UK and across the world eventually, and if they say that you have to do it, you will have to do it. That's what I believe.
So as a present legislation is all traffic matters, you are the responsibility of Norfolk County Council. Absolutely and categorically. I think I think there's an ex-traffic constable in the room, and he'll probably confirm that.
I've got to be honest, with all due respect, I left in 2004, I've been a few sleep since then, so I've not got a clue. I can help you out because I'm handy man, if you need some paint.
Are you progress, please? Can we move on to the next?
So just one more thing. If this does eventually come into play, we as Thetford and Watton and UK really do not want this in place. And my children live here, my granddaughter lives here, and my little grandson, who's about to be born in June, he'll be here too. I live in Watton. I will find it a struggle to get here to come and see them, give them a cuddle. They're my children. This not only affects me, it affects everybody, and it will affect your lives too. And you need to think about that hard.
Okay, thanks very much. Could we move on to the next speaker, please?
Hi, my name's Lynn Roll. Most of the questions that I had prepared have already been asked, but there's just one thing I might be a bit slow on the uptake. But if there are no plans to implement this in Thetford, what exactly is the trial going to involve?
Thank you, Linda. There is no trial. There's no trial in Thetford. There's no trial proposed anywhere in Norfolk. We are, here to talk about something which isn't even being proposed to happen. That's the ludicrous situation. Tom's confirmed that. I've confirmed that. The acting leader of Norfolk County Council has confirmed that. There are no proposals for a trial. It's the motion that was adopted was to look at the concept and consider whether a trial might be appropriate. I don't know if we ever will get to a trial, but that's where we're at the moment.
So categorically there is not going to be a trial in Thetford?
It's a bit like Tom, and you've been when he says that. There are 84 members of Norfolk County Council. Jane and I are two of them. We are in a democracy. If a majority of Norfolk County Councils propose to do something in 2 years' time, that's the decision that they will make. I have given you an assurance that I will never vote for that.
I'm
so
sure the
that
people of Thetford's opinion
probably
counts
Jane
more
will
than
say the
Norfolk County
same.
councillors.
We can't, nobody has a crystal ball, things may change, but we can categorically say it's not proposed now. That is an honest answer. Just, if I may, two further points that were made earlier. Firstly, about the whip. Town councillors are not whipped. They can vote however they feel, and if you attend a town council meeting, you will see people of different political parties, all the same, voting every which way. Hanging baskets, public toilets, the market square are not party political issues. These 16 members of Thetford Town Council are there to do what they feel is best. They are not whipped. And secondly, good luck donating your allowance as a town councillor to a good cause. Town councillors are not paid. They are not paid a penny. They are not. Town councillors are not paid a penny. They are not paid expenses. It is a completely voluntary position. So I just want to be very clear. Town councillors are on a voluntary basis.
Can I just be very quickly, if I just clarify, town and district. District are paid, so there's 8. So we're putting 8 through for town and district. So please don't disregard that last comment, because districts are paid, and it's the district money that will go into the slush fund. Okay, so just clarify.
So if there's no
District are district paid.
Yes, they are. Sorry, you said you, as town councillors, you will do this.
No. You didn't listen to my speech.
No, they never do.
I did try. I did try, but I got lost in the political ground.
There's town and district.
Okay,
Selective hearing going on.
can we stick to the point about 20-minute neighbourhoods, please? Can we have the next speaker?
Can everyone hear me back there?
Yeah.
So as the UK reporter for Rebel News, I've noticed that the mainstream media, ITV, have got everything they need, even though the meeting hasn't finished. And I can only wonder what narrative they will spin, as they've clearly not heard everything you had to say. Excellent. Now, at Rebel News, one of the main things we've been covering is the 15-minute city concept, which is something that's been endorsed by the World Economic Forum. It's been modelled on the city of Ghent in Belgium, a very flat, modern city, you could say, as it was practically rebuilt at the end of the Second World War, and was designed for things like lots of bikes. So in the UK, many of the 15-minute city proposals we have are the Canterbury Circulation Plan, traffic filtering systems in Oxford, the Cambridge Congestion Charge, livable neighbourhoods in Bath and Bristol, and we have the ultra-low emission zones. Basically, they are all the same thing under different names. Now, one of the things I've heard here tonight is politicians, and I'm old enough to remember when politicians would say things like 3 weeks to flatten the curve, very honestly. Lots of these politicians, they always say, yes, you have a choice. But usually, the choice is, and they don't like to say this bit out loud, here are your choices. Do what we want, or we will fine you into poverty. So, to round that off, can you categorically say, and I don't just mean fines with ANPR cameras for driving into areas, I mean in every single sense, can you categorically say there will be absolutely no charges or a war started on private vehicle owners with things like taxes or more places that are free parking to become paid parking or fines for simply driving? Can you categorically say now, on record, because there is still some media here, that you will not impose absolutely any financial restrictions on any private vehicle owner? Thank you.
I'm going to have to, Mike's going to have to protect me on the way out of the auditorium.
You got salary.
No, I couldn't give you that reassurance because I suspect, for example, there will be more on-street charging in future years than there is now. And one of the, you'll appreciate the nuance in this. At the moment, with the internal combustion engine I don't know, a litre of fuel is, whatever it is, £1.40. How much of that goes to the Treasury and VAT and whatever? Probably about £1. As we move towards electric cars, there's going to be an awful big hole in the taxman's takings. So I suspect governments are going to have to look at how can we recoup some of that charge back. I would say something like road user charging will probably happen within our lifetime, because petrol cars are going to be banned from 2030, give or take. So I couldn't give you that reassurance. That would be hypocritical of me. But you'll know that because you've done your research, and that's something that I suspect will happen absolutely within our lifetime.
But could, sorry, a quick point. Could Norfolk County Council, on record, agree that there will be nothing imposed by the County Council on combustion engine private vehicle owners? Just simply from your end, can you commit to not imposing any new charges? And I don't mean fuel costs or fuel duty, because that's a national level, but on a local level within the County Council, can you tell everyone here at Thetford now, you will not impose a single penny on private vehicle owners simply for their right in, well, what I think is a free country, to drive wherever they please on public roads, which they already pay for through the tax?
Okay, next speaker, please. I think there have been assurances that there are no plans afoot.
I'd like to hear it one more time.
I'm happy to respond, and Jay may wish to comment as well. You'll have it on film, sir, because in my opening remarks I said if any future 20-minute neighbourhood proposals for Thetford seek to restrict movement, impose fines or otherwise curtail personal freedoms, then I would be totally against, and I would vote strongly against. I can't speak for 83 other members of Norfolk County Council. I'm not the leader of the council, I don't run the county council. I can give you my honest answer as an individual that I will not vote for that. I said it here on record twice, you can play it back. I will never vote for that.
But do the wishes of the people of Thetford get overruled by 82 people that sit in Bracknell or Norfolk?
Okay.
So you've got no weight whatsoever.
No, sir, if you want to speak, please join the queue. Next speaker.
Thank you. For those who don't know me, my name is Mark Taylor, and I've been a district councillor previously and a Thetford councillor at the minute. I do have a question for the panel, however, I just want to explain to the audience that it's only just taken me virtually 8 years to understand how the council works. There's 3 levels. There's the lower level, parish town, there's the middle level, which is district, and there's the higher level, which is county. Now, all the power resides at the other 2 levels, the district and the county levels. Thetford virtually is in charge of the blooming lovely flowers and the toilets, and that's about as much power as we've got. Nobody gets paid at the Thetford level. Everybody gets paid at the next 2 levels up. That is where all the decisions are made. Now, you've seen we've only got 2 county councillors that represent Thetford. So it's very, very easy for high levels of council to tell residents of Thetford what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. So you've got to start thinking about how you're going to get the power back down to your level, because it's a lot of your money that is going to pay them at the higher level to tell you what to do and not think about anything that you're saying or telling them that you're worried about. So you need to start thinking about that. Now, to my question, I think that the county councillors tonight are potentially not telling us the truth or are very naive. Now, I'm going to say naive because I know a lot of people in the audience. I can hear the muscles, I can hear you talking. You've all done the research. You know what is going on in the world right now. Potentially, the county councillors don't. Now, for those in the audience who don't know, and we're talking about how the higher levels of council push everything down, it's exactly the same in the world. Above governments, there's corporations, above corporations, there's other things. The UN is the focal point for everything at the minute. Now, they have something which you can all go and research, it's called Agenda 21. For various reasons, Agenda 21 went backwards. I won't bore you with why, some of you know. It's now called Agenda 30, and everything is being pushed down from Agenda 30. Your smart cities, all these 15 and 20-minute debacles, your ULEZ, everything's going to be smart. It's all leading to your digital ID. You've heard the fella that they've not heard about in the panel, Klaus Schwab, saying, you will own nothing and you'll be happy. The plan is for you to run everything digital. You will not be able to move. Somebody like me, I'll be in the gulag because they won't like me. I'll be lucky if I get 2 crickets a week to eat. You won't be getting your meat. It's all there. Do the research. Everything I'm saying is not conspiracy. It's all there. They are relying, the people who run the world are relying on you not doing the research. Now, our councillors who get paid good money, let's not beat around the bush. At high levels, they get paid good money, and they have no incentive to do the research. That's why I'm accusing them tonight of being slightly naive. Now, the other thing we heard tonight about potentially we'll go down the mayor route. I come from Liverpool. We've got in the biggest cities like Liverpool what we call the metro mayors. Now, the mayors, in effect, become a mini dictator. However, did you know that all over the world for about the last 8 years, the mayors have been getting together and making policy decisions which are being sent down from the UN, minus to this sort of dialogue, rhetoric and questioning going on. So beware these big mayors, because all the power goes into one place and they won't allow any discussion and debate like this. So you have to be very, very aware of what's going on in this world at the minute. Naive, yes. Hopefully, like yourselves who don't know, will get educated. So my question to the panel is, have you done any research on UN Agenda 21, now UN Agenda 30, how that leads into the 15-minute cities and the 20-minute neighbourhoods? I can't believe this young lady's had some sort of moment from Damascus moment and just thought about it herself. I find that totally intriguing. But please, have you done the research, is my question. Thank you.
As I said, off the back of your concerns, I have read up on Agenda 2030, and it's not relevant when it comes to the 20-minute neighbourhood. Seriously, it doesn't come into play with forward.
You know this is being recorded, right?
I am.
You know this isn't camera, right?
I know, but it's true. It does come into play. Okay, because from what I gather, the Agenda 2030, whatever those neighbourhoods are, they're all about restricting people. But what I was suggesting isn't that at all. It isn't that at all. It really isn't that at all.
Okay, I think we want to come back on that, Peter.
What are you going to say? You better tell them loud.
Keep it brief, because we need to flow.
All I would say to everybody in the audience, especially the people who own businesses, taxis, shops, have a look at what's happened in the likes of Oxford, where businesses are going down, taxis are suffering, all the small businesses which are under attack are suffering. The best thing that you can do, the councillors here are telling us it's not going to happen on their watch. Get the word off them on paper and get their personal names on that paper. And if your business goes down on their watch, you can attack them in their sovereign ability because they assured you it wouldn't happen. Do not go for the councillor to corporation. You go for them in their personal capacity. So if they tell you it's not going to happen, if they tell you everything's going to be all right, get that in writing off there. You can then, in the future, if it all goes wrong, have somebody to aim for. If they do not sign it, it is the corporation, and you don't have to do anything the corporation tells you. Thank you very much.
You step down before that. If it goes through, you all step
Order,
down.
please. Order.
Yeah.
We have one more speaker, the lady in the green. I think the lady in the red has already spoken. So I'll take just one more speaker, which is the lady in the green. You're on the list. Okay, go ahead.
I had no intention of speaking tonight, I'll be honest, but I've come here and I have done research and I'm more confused now than I was before I came here. You tell me it's not being considered as a trial for Thetford, yet I have it here in the EDP where it says areas of Norfolk where major development is planned, where the 20-minute neighbourhood concept could be explored includes Attleborough, Thetford, Rackheath, north east of Norwich. So I am confused by that. I am confused also when this is a second meeting, why, if there's 83 councillors, we have 2 here. You asked, what do we want as Thetford people? I have lived in Thetford all my life, and I am lucky not to have been ill. We all know health is a lottery. On one occasion when I did need an appointment, I waited 6 weeks. Now, this week, I have heard for a telephone appointment, I will wait 3.5 weeks. That is not acceptable. It's really not acceptable. There are so many things that Thetford doesn't have, and I love Thetford, living here all my life. I was at school with you, Mike, you'll remember. And Tom, you know, we can't even have a rugby club for young children here. We had to travel to Wyndham for a rugby club, okay? I used to work in Barclays Bank. We don't have a bank anymore, so my job now is out of town. Lots of people are forced to work out of town because the jobs are not here for us. I don't have any questions. I'm not sure I would get my answers that I want, but I am truly, truly worried that we haven't made much progress. What I would say, Tom, is I'd be really, really grateful for that letter coming to Thetford Council, because I can assure you, if I am fined, I will not have the money to pay it, and therefore either I'm going to end up in prison, or I'm going to need to quote your letter, Tom, to say thank you very much, it's not happening.
Comment from the floor, and then I'm going to Jeff Mealing, and then I'm going to ask Jane to close the meeting.
Sure, right, can you hear me? Cool. My name's Luke Collins. I wrote something down, I've crossed a lot of things off because I think it's already been asked. But I'll start this. So, for as long as I can remember, public services, not only in Thetford, but the whole of the UK, have seen cutbacks to resources due to a lack of funding, public use, or because they wasn't generating enough income. This ranges from public transport, education, police and local businesses. Knowing that historically we have had to cut back on resources, it makes me wonder why this time round it would be any different. In the document you posted called Safe Sustainable Development, you say how you plan to, and I quote, increase and improve walking, cycling and public transport, encouraging a shift away from car use. You also say that emphasis needs to be placed on encouraging a shift away from a private car. Although at first I can imagine there will be an increase in the amount of cyclists and walkers around the town, what will your plans be when the novelty wears off? Is it realistic to expect people to walk and cycle in the rain or on a cold winter's day? And what will happen if you begin struggling to fund public transport for similar reasons to what we've seen in the past? I believe that this is where our concerns will start coming to fruition, leading to higher council tax, roadblocks and travel restrictions that generate more income in order to fund these resources. One reason you justify the need to move away from private vehicles is because it has created local air quality problems. But where is the evidence for this? That statement alone is very vague, and there's no proof of this on the Norfolk County Council website that I can find. A lot of you have made it clear that you're against travel restrictions, and I hope that you all stick to your word. The only problem is, you're not in permanent positions, and there's nothing to say that anyone who replaces you won't feel differently. And although we have a say in who represents us in the council through votes and elections, we never elected any of you to do this, and yet here we are. I've seen a lot of arguments online about this topic, and I actually believe if we all step back that we'd agree with each other. Although the media and others might paint us out to be Neanderthals who want to see this town's demise, I don't believe that there's anybody in here today that would be against the idea of seeing their town thriving and wouldn't want better resources in the town, but there's a way to go about it, and this isn't the right way. Vice versa, it's likely that even those who disagree with us would not want to be in a world where their travel is restricted. It might just be a case that they can't see or imagine things that ever getting so bad. I just want to say, surely, had you all been confident that we would be for this kind of idea, you would have done a public vote.
Okay, thank you very much. Could we move on to Jeff?
Good evening. Just going to recap on what Mark said about the 20-minute cities he went into about the digital ID and that. The thing I've got a problem with, you see, with the 20-minute smart cities and obviously I'm going to touch on Oxford here, where they're dividing it into 6 zones, 100 passes out, 20 passes in 2024. Now the thing is, if this does come here and they're stating it's not going to come here, my view is the way it is, it's in a partial lockdown because we're being restricted. And the problem with that, obviously, is the freedom of movement. But we don't want that, you see. We want to be allowed to go about our business, doing our own thing, without someone telling us, you can't go around there. And it's going to affect people's livelihood. But going on from that, the way I see if we're settled in a little partial lockdown, the next 2 or 3 years is going to be something, because there's going to be a big crash. The system's going to go bust. The banks are going to go bust. Cash is going to disappear. This is the problem. It's going to happen. You know, and we're going to face blackouts. Now, on the fake stream media, they're going to preempt it and say, look, we're going to get cyber attacks. Probably blame the Russians. But it's by design. This is by design that this is happening. And it will happen. The crash will come. We'll face blackouts. Could be a month. Could be 2 months. Could be 6 months. Who knows? So as a little side bet, I suggest you start stocking up on food and water and things that you'll possibly need. Because this crash will come. Following that, I hope when the lights do go up, we don't see our government and Rishi Sunak, because he wants to push the central bank digital currency. He absolutely wants to push that. And this is based on a social credit score. When the internet came out all them years ago, they have been tracking our social behaviours on the phones and things and laptops and whatever. They've been actually tracking us as a social score. I mean, you've only got to look at China. It's actually only got to look at Israel. And actually it's been ratified in law in the USA by that awful bloke Joe Biden. So actually this is happening. And what it is, it's a surveillance coin. It's going to track your every spend on a one world bank. That's where we're going to end up, with a one world bank, one world government. So they're going to actually decide whether they're going to allow you to eat red meat or not. And if they don't, they'll just stop you eating that. They might even ban you for a week. If you slander someone on Facebook, you might be doing it in jest, but no, they'll see it as bad and they'll dock your points. You know, you might even think, well, I'm just going to go and get some tyres for my car, and they'll go, hang on, your carbon emissions. You know, I'm sorry, we're not going to let you out now. You know, but at the end of the day, they need something to blame. So they're going to blame it on the climate, they're going to blame it on the carbon emissions and things like that. But the thing is, with this central bank digital currency, and bear it in mind, just for those who don't know, there's over 1 billion surveillance cameras around the world at the moment. And plus you've got your tracking on your phone, even Alexa knows what's going on. Even your doorbell, video doorbell ones, they're all tracked there. And your new cars that are coming out are going to be fitted with cameras. And by 2025, there's going to be 16 cameras in each car. So you better watch out what you get up to with your cars. It's after the watershed, so I can get away with that. But yeah, so moving on. But the thing with the Central Management Council, they need something else to go with it. Mark mentioned the digital ID, and that's what it is. The facial recognition. It's all over the place. It's even in the polling stations now for next time you want to vote, so I wouldn't bother voting. So yes, they need that digital ID to work with the blockchain to get the central bank digital currency up and running. So you're going to see, and what they're going to do eventually with your apps and with your Facebook, whatever it is, they won't need your logins, your passwords. It's literally the facial ID that they'll need to get everything running. So when you see the 15-minute cities, it will be smart cities, it will be connected to the grid, it will be connected to 5G, it literally will be connected. You will be in a digital concentration camp, a digital ID prison. And like I said, if these 20 minutes over the smart cities come in, so you're already partially locked down, you're virtually, well, it's end of really, game over, if that happens that way. So unless you really know, and like Mark said, the guys, if they haven't done their research and looked ahead of what's going on, then really they need to. They need to, because this is detrimental. Like I said, the next 2 to 3 years, it will go bust, cash will go and it will disappear, you know, and we will be in a digital prison, if Rishi Sunak gets his way. But if we stop things like this, even though they're saying they're not going to happen, if we stop things like this and get ahead before it actually happens, we'll have a chance. We've all got to come together. We all need to do that little bit more research, you know. Ignorance of reality isn't a good strategy for survival. You've got to look into things. Now, you know, we get called conspiracy theorists. Who cares? At the end of the day, we are telling you what's going on. It's your problem if you're not looking into it. Maybe not you people here, because you may realise what's going on. But in general, when people just say, oh, you're talking rubbish, Jeff, but don't look into it, that is the problem we're facing. So people need to look into it. There are reasons for everything in this world. There are reasons why these 20-minute cities and that came out, is because it's the start of what I would say is a lockdown situation. And if you've got the digital concentration camp, the ID, everything in place, who's to say they won't throw in a climate lockdown, throw it all in, as in a pandemic, and there you go, game over. So we really, really got to try and do a research, but stop these things happening. So I don't know about you guys there and how much you do know, but I suggest you look into it. And you know, I agree with what you said earlier, Mike, on the stuff there, but obviously we've moved around now. So I just really hope what you're saying, you said tonight, that you totally disagree with the 20-minute cities and that and zones. But as we know, the decision doesn't, you know, make it with the four of you. It's the whole of your county council, you know. And the fact that you four turned up is commendable, but disappointing that Andrew Proctor hasn't turned up, and the rest of the other team, really, you know. I would say maybe he's got held up, maybe there's a roadblock somewhere or restriction that he can't get in. Sorry, Andrew, what was that? Yeah, oh, you were going to turn up, but don't worry about it. No, that's fine, we need to finish now. But yeah, anyway, I jest, but these are the things that will happen if we let them. So thank you very much for listening. Oh, just before I finish, I want to end, if I get it right, with a quote from the great Thomas Paine. He said, I prefer peace, but if trouble must come, no, I'm nearly there, but if trouble must come, let it be in my time, so that my children live in peace. Thank you very much.
Joe, just very, very quickly, can I just, this has been a little bit of a different type of meeting to what people thought they were going to go. From our point of view, it's structured exactly what we wanted. They came with nothing, we've educated you. Thank you.
So thank you all ever so much for attending. It is appreciated. We are representatives, duly elected, democratically elected, to listen to all our residents' views. So that includes everybody here, but also the other nearly 30,000 residents of Thetford. We represent all their views and have to take those into account. So I'm really grateful that we have all come together. As Jeff rightly said, to hear those fears, those concerns, also those hopes and aspirations, and that's incredibly important too. So I agree as well, everyone here has a responsibility to engage. Engagement is a two-way street. I have had more emails than you, Terry, a lot more emails than you, on both sides of the argument, and that's the challenge for us as elected individuals, that we do have to understand all the viewpoints and take those on board. So thank you all very much for your time. As I stated in an email to my councillor colleagues over a month ago, this is the start of a conversation. We need to keep communicating, and that's what I'd urge you all to do tonight. Keep communicating with us, please. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I now draw the meeting to a close.
There you go, people. I hope you've enjoyed that. Good turnout, good questions. I'll let you see them leave. Thanks for watching.
Thanks very much. Just ask Bob just over so I can check them out.